Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, the only podcast dedicated to helping you grow your dance studio while reclaiming your life. It's Clint Salter here, the CEO and founder of the Dance Studio Owners Association. And for the next 8 weeks, we're bringing you a very special series of podcast episodes with dance studio owners Jane Grech and Melanie Gard, who are also part of our Inner Circle program. Over these next 8 episodes, Jane and Mel will be sharing their own challenges, successes, experiences, and advice as dance studio owners. Welcome to this very special podcast event at the Barre with Jane and Mel. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Barre. It's at the Barre podcast with Miss Mel and Miss Jane, and it's a very warm welcome to you, Miss Mel. How are you?
I'm very happy the sun is shining in Melbourne today, so it's a good day. It's a good day.
Bit jealous. It's grey here, but that's okay. We had sun yesterday, and it was my day off yesterday, so I cannot complain. Well, I can, but I won't.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. I love it. We are talking about looking after ourselves. And when we first kind of were pitching this idea to each other, we were talking about looking after our bodies, because dance is obviously, physical, and the fact that we've only got one body. But I have a feeling it's going to morph a little bit into general self-care as well, which I think is fine. So let's throw straight over to you, Miss Mel. Any thoughts that you've been, thinking about during the week in the lead up to the podcast on, looking after you?
Looking after you? Well,
you can look after me.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best. I'm not very good at looking after myself. I'll say that up front. I'm getting better as I get older. And we did start talking about looking after our body, and I think you're right, Jane. As I was thinking about it during the week, it definitely goes hand in hand with looking after your mind. And I think what I'm finding more and more is that looking after my mental health and my own well-being in that sense outweighs my need for looking after my body, because it goes hand in hand. The simple act of me getting on top of my foam roller and rolling out my upper back, that feels great for all those sore spots and muscles. But more than that, it connects me back to my body. I take a deep breath and I'm mindful, I'm present in that moment. And that's something that I haven't been very good at over the years, and I'm trying to practice that more and more. So that's a good outcome for my body, but it's also much better for my mind as well.
I love that. And I love the fact that you use the word practice, which is very much generally how people talk about having a mindful practice. I love the word practice, because it means it gives us an out in some way, in that sometimes we're good at it and sometimes we're not. And that's because we're still practicing, right? We're still practicing. And here's what I find is that I'm very hard on myself, Mel. And so when I'm not good at it or at anything, really, I beat myself up about it. And I think we need to work hard. I need to work hard at giving myself a little less trauma, giving myself the guilt. And this podcast is being recorded very serendipitously, because as I shared with you before we came on, one of my teachers has called in unwell this morning, and my reaction, I'm already backfilling 7 classes a week at the moment due to circumstance. And my reaction was that I was just going to jump in and take those classes, because it felt like the easier option. And I messaged you and I said, we can't record, I've got to do this. And you were like, yep, no worries. And then 10 minutes later, I messaged you back and said, no, we're on. I'm cancelling the classes, which kills me. It wasn't the easy option, but I've got a voice condition that I have to look after, and it's really hard because people can't see it. So it's not like I've got a leg in plaster, and I know you've had trouble with your hip and things. It's internal. People can't see. that we're carrying this. But I've got rehearsals all weekend. You know, it's performance season. I'm already a bit tippy. The easy option was to step in and take those classes. The hard option was cancelling them. And the reason I didn't want to do it was because I would have let all of those people down. But what I realised is when I'm always doing that, I'm letting myself down, Mel.
Yeah,
and I've
absolutely.
got to stop letting myself down. And then I felt incredibly guilty about it. And I still do a little bit, that I wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't resilient enough, or I wasn't actually superhuman to work for 12-hour days in a row, which is what's being presented to me. And I've got to let go of that. I've got to let go of that.
And that's such I mean, you know, look, you and I are both women. I'm sure men experience it as well. But I think as mothers and women, we are used to being that, aren't we? We have to be the one that's up in the middle of the night and feeding that baby or settling that baby. We're the one nursing the sick child and then still going to work and picking up the shopping on the way home. And so we get into that pattern. I think it just becomes a pattern and a habit of being the person to pick up the pieces. It's the same with our businesses. At the end of the day, the buck stops with us.
That's right.
And so we are often left holding those problems and going, what do I do with this? Now, that's a bit icky, isn't it, cancelling classes and then talking, you know, that communicate. You've got to put in a place a communication strategy and, you know, there's got to be
It definitely would have,
parents and, that's hard. It's hard.
Definitely would have been easier just to jump on in. I know what to do and I could have done it. But the fact of the matter is it would have impacted my mental health as well as my physical health, you know, and I've spent thousands of dollars on getting my voice back to where it almost could be. And I need to look after that. The other thing I wanted to say, and then I've really kind of done my pieces over to you. The other thing I wanted to say is we're so hard on ourselves, which I know I've already touched on. We're so hard on ourselves that a useful little tip is, how would you talk to a friend? And I gave this advice to my mum, of all people, last week. Beautiful mum, runs a Pilates studio. She's 65 years old, but age is just a number. She's about, 23. But she's got the body of a 65-year-old in that it fails her at times. And she's injured herself, and she's really pushing through now. She's really pushing through. And I said, you know what, Mum, if this was your client standing in front of you, or a friend, but we were talking about clients, I said, what would your advice be to them? You know, if they presented to you with this injury, what would you say to them? Would you say, oh, you should definitely go into work tomorrow? Or would you say, have 3 days off, go to the physio? Oh, but I can't, she says. I can't. I'm like, I know it feels like that because it's our businesses and we're so caught up in it, and it is risky. It is risky. You do lose money. We can't just call in sick, can we?
No, that's right. That's right. And there's always going to be those people that, turn their noses up or, are a bit put out. But you have to kind of put an armour around yourself and just go, my health, my well-being is more important, because in the long term, your mum is not going to be able to sustain that, is she?
No,
She's going to be no good to anyone.
No, and her relationships that matter are going to be impacted. And you know what? Yeah. When she's 85, I'm still going to be there for her. In 20 years, I'm still going to be there for her. In 20 years' time, those clients that may be judging her for cancelling a class, or my clients this morning that may be judging me because I had to cancel a class, which I don't think ever done actually in the history of 13 years. I don't think we've ever done it. They're going to judge me anyway, right? And they're not in my life in 20 years' time.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got to keep that in perspective, Jane. So that's something you've never done before. Those families, are with your studio because they respect your studio and love it. they'll come back. It's not, it's really in the scheme of things. I mean, if I was a parent on the other end of that, I'd go, oh, that's a bummer. Oh, well, we'll go to the park.
That's it. Off to the play cafe.
It's not a big deal, really, in the greater scheme of things, is it?
And I feel like you and I are not alone in this. That I think that, the type of personality that runs a dance studio, I think if we did a personality test, and that could be interesting, across dance studio owners, there would be obviously a great variety, but I think there would be a few common threads that would tie us together. And it's this feeling of responsibility, of being the all singing, all dancing, all smiling, all juggling, super amazing human.
Yeah. And care, like we care so deeply about those students and families. Like it's not, we're not delivering donuts, And so donuts.
I wish I was delivering donuts some days because that's my weakness. But also on the flip side, that's funny that you say that, but we're also not brain surgeons.
Yes, yeah.
So
that's what I was saying, like keep it in perspective. Yeah. Those families might be a little bit put out, but they probably will just go to the park.
Yes.
And it's no big deal. You're not trifling brain surgery.
No, and I'm just wondering now, I'm just trying to get into the mental space of a brain surgeon about their mental well-being. And it's actually blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that I'm not smart enough to be a brain surgeon.
I don't know, you're pretty smart.
Oh, I'm good with a fork and knife.
Stop it. A fork and knife, is that what you're going to do surgery with?
No, I'm going to remain here in my dance studio for the sake of everybody.
Yes.
But let's keep it in perspective. Let's be kind to ourselves. Let's speak to ourselves like we would speak to each other. So if and we do. You and I are so kind to each other. And, when I sent you that message, like, no, we're on, you were like, good on you, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that to ourselves as well. But also have a friend. Friends are important.
The thing is, and I think this is the thing with our friendship too, is we're often saying things to each other. I dish you out a whole lot of advice and vice versa. But often the advice I give to you, I need to give to myself too. I'm good at dishing it out, not always good at listening to my own advice.
Oh, for sure. And that actually is why I think I had the courage to cancel those classes, because I thought, how hypocritical of me to just forge ahead when this was our subject today, when my voice is sore. I've got 3 hours of teaching this afternoon. I'm not feeling the best. How hypocritical of me to not take my own advice.
And isn't that great that you took that moment to reflect on that, because sometimes we just go bang, 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 and you kind of go into that fight or flight mode. I've got to put out this hot fire. Like it's just that quiet moment of reflection. Is this the right decision to make in this moment? And I think we talked about that. I don't know what we talked about it, but these podcasts are blurring into one big podcast in my mind now. But, we have talked about that, taking that moment just to reflect and stop and think, is this the right decision? Am I living my truth? Am I, and that for you was like, well, okay, this is not right.
No.
I'm going to make this call. And then your admin team can deal with it.
That's right. Lucky them. Yes. I'll buy them some chocolate.
Yes. Donuts. Get them donuts.
Donuts for everyone. Yes. The other thing is with our bodies, I think we need to, because, for you and me, and I mean, hopefully we all get older. That's the blessing that is life.
Yes.
We kind of need to allow a little bit of recovery time as well and not feel guilty about that. And I've never been much of a sportswoman because I'm quite uncoordinated actually. For a dancer, I'm good. I've got my legs and arms in all the right places. But if you add in equipment of any sort, I'm very uncoordinated.
Nightmare.
But I quite enjoy. okay?
I can't deal with balls. Like,
well, I use the word equipment.
Equipment, okay.
Yes. When equipment is thrown into the mix, it is difficult. No, I am with you. But I have a point, and I'm going to get to it.
Sorry, I'll stop.
Is that I watch quite a lot of sport. I actually enjoy watching sport, and maybe that's a learned behaviour because, as you know, I'm married, and the football here, the Australian rules football, is on in our home, and my daughter plays it, so I'm like, right, let's just get in and do it. But I watch them do their recovery. I watch high-level sports people do recovery sessions, and I am not taking this old body down to the freezing beach and wading through icy cold water to recover. I'm not that committed. But also, what about not feeling guilty and indulgent about having a massage every now and then? Because for me, I often feel like that's I don't know, something I can't afford to do right now. And I'm not talking money, I'm talking time. Oh, I don't have time. Or I can't go to the physio because I've got this, or whatever it is. So how about we try and work on that mindset as well? I'm preaching to myself here as much as everyone else, and go, this is our body. We've got one.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we can't really get spare parts. We can kind of, but not really.
Kind of. Yeah, I've just had a friend have a hip replacement, but that's not ideal. Definitely
it's
not
ideal, is it? No.
Yeah.
And if we can prevent it, if we can put things in place, just simple little things, then we are putting ourselves first, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a really hard thing to do as a dancer. I think, there is definitely a mentality of pushing through. I think I read an article, I think it was in Dance Informer last week, and, there was advice from some medical experts saying, dancers, you need to stop, you need to rest. You need to let your body recover. You do not need to push through. But there is that kind of mentality when you're a dancer growing up.
Oh, tough as. Exactly.
Yeah, dancers are tough, we can tough it out. We can,
we almost pride ourselves on it like a trophy.
Yeah, it is. It's like a badge, isn't it? And it's really very much to our detriment. And I, like everything, and I keep saying this, I learnt this the hard way. Because I need to be beaten around until it sort of gets into my head. But after I had Austin, my second baby, that's just around the time I took over the studio. I went back teaching reasonably quickly, and I was teaching jazz classes at the time, and I went back in there and I was kicking my legs around and blah, 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 because had always been reasonably flexible. And then all of a sudden I tore an adductor and really quite badly. It's never been the same ever since. It's just, and I realised at that point, I thought, okay, my body's not, because I sort of bounced back after the first baby. I was like, yeah, this is okay.
What are they talking about? This is easy.
Right. Number 2. Number 3 is a whole nother story, and that's a whole nother podcast.
No, none of us can do that story. My story is don't have 3 babies, stop at 2. Where would we be, Miss Mel?
Yeah.
Where would we be?
Pardon?
Where would we be without Ruby and Liam? We wouldn't be.
Yes. Our little world. I say that to her all the time. I said to her the other night, I'm like, thanks for choosing me. And she goes, that's okay, Mum. I looked at all the mummies.
and you looked the craziest.
Totally. But it like going back to that sort of just taking a step back and looking at, because when you're teaching, this is the other thing, you're not doing a dance class. You're not coming in and doing a proper warm-up, doing the bar, coming into the centre, all those sorts of things. You haven't done all of those progressions. And then if you're going to stand there and all of a sudden do a jeté, it's going to hurt. It might not hurt when you were 19, but it will.
Yeah. I'm thinking that there's a whole lot of people listening going, been there, done that.
Yeah.
Because we get excited. And it's hard not to.
I love jetés.
Yes.
I love it. But, yeah, it's being mindful of where your body's at and looking after it in that moment. So, yeah, be careful.
It's interesting you touched on warm-up there. I went, this is a couple of years ago, I went to a workshop with the Queensland Ballet where I was just observing, and I walked in and there were a couple of students already in the studio just kind of doing their pretend student warm-up, which we all know is like not really quite right. Mm-hmm. And then there was one, I was looking at the person from behind, I couldn't see their face, doing a very thorough warm-up, and I was very impressed, Miss Mel. And I thought, wow, you are really looking after your body. Fantastic. Anyway, a couple more minutes passed and it turned out to be Paul Boyd. Wonderful, wonderful teacher, wonderful dancer. And, I was like, oh, wow. Wow. Mm-hmm. Because he was going into a 3-hour session. He had 2 1.5-hour classes back to back. And he's a mature man. He's not a spring chicken. And he was really, the way he was warming up his body really inspired me, because it just showed me how much self-care he had. So much self-respect.
Yes.
Right? That he was worth that. And he also was not at all interested in anything else that was going on in the class. He had because it wasn't his responsibility. Class hadn't started. So when I walked in the room, normally I'm such a little people pleaser. I might have been, say if I was in his position, I might have been, oh, hello, I'm Jane. Well, just take a seat. No, he was so in the zone. He didn't even know I'd entered the room. And ever since I've seen that, it's not always possible, I'm going to admit this, but I've tried to just go, you're warming up your students, Jane, you need to do a bit of work yourself. You need to do a bit of work yourself. And, it's never brilliant. I'm never at his level. Often, I might be doing the school run and running into the studio with my kids and whatnot. But in which case, those times, really warm up your students. Do it with them. Get yourself ready. Do what you need to do, and they can do what you need to do too. It's not going to hurt them.
Absolutely. That's what I do now too, because I'm often the same thing. I've got to pick the kids up from school, get into the studio, and bang, I'm teaching. That's my favourite thing to do, is just jump in and do the warm up with them. Just flipping back a little bit, Jane, I actually went to a talk at our local high school last night on anxiety and school refusal. Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting and relevant. Obviously, we all have kids at our studios that are either on the spectrum or experience anxiety. But one of the things I took away from it, and she spoke very much about practicing mindfulness, but the importance of practicing those things when you're not in fight or flight mode.
Yes.
And I thought, yes, because, like, for example, this morning for you, you were mindful. You took a moment to kind of really think about what you were doing. Had you not been practicing being mindful and reflecting and doing self-reflection in other times where, like, for example, yesterday you went to the beach, you were very actively mindful.
Yes.
You may not have been able to click into that. And I thought a lot about that. That's so applicable across so many areas of our lives, and it's the same thing with exercise, isn't it? Physio or massage or whatever you need to do to keep your body on track, if you're only doing those things when something really bad is happening, like, for example, you injured yourself, then the benefits are not going to be as profound.
That's fantastic. Yeah, what a beautiful connection.
I was like, yes, you've got to practice. She was talking about all these like little breathing exercises and different images for kids, and they were great. And I was like, I'm going to do this. Like she had some great little practices that she uses with children, but she was just, really, really strong on you need to practice this when they're calm, when
That's
they're not
right,
in
because
fight.
what we're doing is we're creating pathways in the brain for us to follow, and
Yes.
we have to keep setting them there. Of course, when an emergency, fake or otherwise, presents ourselves, we're going to go fight or flight. That's the way we're made. It's very, very deeply in our brain. But then if we've had no practice at accessing the other part of our brain, which is like, okay, hold on. If we haven't created the pathway there, then we won't be able to access that. And I love that you've brought that in. You spot on. You are spot on with the body as well. We always hear prevention is better than a cure, but being the type of people that we are, we're going for the cure instead of prevention, because there's always something else going on. And I'm living, I don't want anybody to think that I've got this sorted. I'm a living, breathing example of this. I used to spend Saturday afternoon for an hour cooling down in my mum's Pilates studio, which is at the rear of my complex, and now I'm back filling teaching. I need to get back to cooling my body down once a week where I really stretch it out, because that is going to be better for me in the long term. It is creating hamstrings that are less likely to snap in a grand battement. And it's the same with your mind. And I do practice meditation. I'm becoming a annoyingly mindful person, but let me tell you, it has changed my world in the last 3 years. I am much more in control. I am much less anxious. I am more content. Yesterday I had a day off. I walked the beach. I sat. I meditated. I took my children to the park. I put my phone away. I was very present. I was a bit bored because I find the park quite boring. But at the same time...
No one ever tells you that, do they?
No. Look, it's very boring. And I looked around at all the other mums and I was like, are they bored too? But, I was grateful that I was there in the sun with my children, pushing them on the swing. I was.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, the thing is too, you're laying down memories for them that they will hold. Yeah. It's that stuff that you remember from your childhood. You don't remember the school run and the boring stuff. You remember the time with their mum and your dad,
That's right.
I just wanted to share with you, Jane, I don't know, this podcast has been hopefully helpful for other people, but for myself, selfishly, it's been really quite profound. And we laugh about this teapot, but I did go and buy a teapot after that conversation we had. I can't even remember what the topic was.
No, I don't know. It wasn't about teapots originally. I can be sure of that.
But every morning now I make my cup of tea and I go and sit. I've created a spot in my home. So we've just done a little bit. It's been a big project, big renovation in our house. And I've created this little space, this little nook that kind of was a bit empty, and I bought a chair and a cushion and a little side table and a thing from Kmart, and now I've got a plant that hopefully I won't kill because I'm really bad at keeping live plants alive. But I'm trying to be really mindful and present with my plant every morning, and I have my cup of tea and I just sit in the chair. And I've never done that. In my 44 years on this earth, I've never done that in the morning. And I can't tell you the difference it's made to my own sense of well-being during the day, that I've just taken that little bit of time to collect my thoughts and gather where I'm at. My kids are a bit older now. This is the other thing I should say. I tried this years ago. It did not work. When my children were younger, it was just a disaster. But I'm in a space now where my children are much more independent, and I can take 5 minutes in the morning to do that. So thank you, Jane.
And even if your children are, I mean, that's beautiful. I smiled all the way through it because if you can practice little moments like that throughout the day, it's so powerful. Yeah. And if your children are young and annoyingly up, like, gosh, they get up so early, don't they? Bless them.
Painfully.
And, you know, you just need coffee. No judgment from Mel and I, but there are other pockets, you know, during the day. Maybe you're putting your baby down for a 2 p.m. nap and you're thinking, right, I've got to get straight into the emails. Just take 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes where you sit, you make the tea or the coffee or whatever it is, or even just do a 10-minute meditation and then get into your email. And I actually did that on Tuesday. I was feeling a bit scatty. I couldn't even tell you how I was feeling, just a bit like, and I just lay on the couch for 10 minutes and I did a meditation. I'm really good at doing it lying down. You meant to sit up, but rules have to be broken. And I got up, and let me tell you, the next hour was an hour of power. I was on fire because I just centered myself. So it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. Well, my friend, we've come to the end again, but I really enjoyed that conversation, so thank you for unpacking that.
Thank you, Jane. That was great.
And I'm sorry to all my Dance Magic students this morning that did not have a class, but I had to have a chat with
go to the park. And the mums weren't too bored.
Oh, those poor mums had to push their children on the swing.
Yes.
They're creating memories, Mel. Thanks again. We'll chat next week.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our exclusive series At the Bar, powered by the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. For more training, resources, and support specifically for dance studio owners who are wanting to grow their business while reclaiming their life, we'd love you to join us in the Dance Studio Owners Association. For all the information, go to dsoa.com. Take care, and we'll see you next week.